Baja Dorado is a brand new how-to fishing tape from Daniel Hernandez Productions. In this video, we're going to cover everything you'll need to know to get started in Dorado fishing. We'll be covering different techniques like catching Dorado on live and artificial baits. We'll be covering trolling and how to find the fish. And in this video, we'll be fishing from everything from pongas to cruisers to long-range boats. In Baja Dorado, we'll cover just about everything you'll need to know to get started in Dorado fishing. I'd like to thank you for buying our tape on Dorado fishing, and I want to tell you a little bit about this tape. Everything you're going to see was shot in Baja. Now the techniques and stuff that we're using for Dorado fishing, you can use anywhere in the world, wherever there's Dorado. But this tape is geared for those of you that fish in Baja. Now let's talk a little bit first about finding fish. It doesn't matter if you're in a ponga or fishing from a cruiser. When you're out here fishing in Baja, there's fish everywhere, and it's pretty basic. The majority of the fish you're going to find are going to be hiding under what they call like cow patties that we have. But down here, it's more like different types of grasses, eel grass, different types of grasses that they have out on the surface. Now there's also lots of structure. After storms, things like tree branches and stuff will float down, and you see them out here in the ocean, and the fish will build under that. Now one other method that we use is using the birds. We'll use the birds, we'll find the frigate birds that be circling, and then we'll go over by there and troll. Now you can troll either live baits or artificial baits, but some of the artificial baits we want to cover at first that you should have in your tackle box before you make your first trip to Baja are very basic. We'd start off with the feathers. It doesn't matter if you're fishing for tuna or Dorado. Down here, feathers are very productive for those types of fish. Specifically for Dorado, you want something, you'd start off probably with something small like this. Now if you find the bigger Dorado, you can keep moving up in baits. Now these are Zukers. These work excellent down here. Another lure you might want to look for is something like Fierro Jet, where it has the nice little holes in there. These really open up the jigs nicely. And if the fish are bigger, what you might want to do is move up. This would be considered a tuna feather, but down here in Baja, Dorado eat these very easily. And what we do lots of times down here, if we're in a cruiser, we'll troll maybe 4 or 5 different lines. So we'll have, 2 large baits and then 2 smaller baits, maybe even a teaser. And down here in Baja, I wouldn't be afraid to troll something like this. This is a 3.5s by Zuker. We've taken Dorado down here even on 5.5s, much bigger lure, but 3.5s like this will work fine. And you'll be surprised what you catch with them. I mean, there's some huge Dorado down here. Now, if you're ponga fishing, you may not want to go with the feathers. You might want to be something a little bit more versatile. The lures like these are awesome. They work great. These are jawbreakers, and they come in a variety of different colors, but I would match the color according to the bait fish. If you see lots of small bonitas or small skipjacks, you might want to go with something like this, black and silver. If there's lots of mackerel in the water, something like this. And again, pick the size according to the bait fish. If there's lots of small bait fish in the water, go with the smaller jawbreaker. Bigger bait fish, go with the larger one. The jointed model, I've had a lot of success with here in Baja. And I'm not sure if it's just that the fish down here like a bait that's a little bit more active, but this works really good. And even when we're fishing close to the beach, sometimes the Dorado will move in tight. We've caught wahoo on them, we've caught roosterfish. They work really good down here in Baja. And then the sleeper lure that you may not think about is the Bomber Long A. We use these a lot up in the States for calico bass, yellowtail fishing. Down here in Baja, they're awesome for the Dorado. And what's nice about a lure like this, it's very light. It's not like a heavy iron jig. You can actually cast these for the smaller Dorados, cast them right to them, work them back, and the fish will jump. And, I always tell people, don't use iron jigs when you're fishing for Dorado, because when you're out there, a fish starts to jump. All of a sudden, your lure becomes the arrow, and your rod becomes the bow. And it always happens that the fish every once in a while will spit the bait out because they jump so much. And I can't tell you how many times I've personally been hit on the side or in the leg by iron jigs that anglers were using on party boats trying to catch Dorado. Always, if you're going to use something artificial, use something like this that's light, that isn't going to hurt anyone. Now, once we find the fish, what we'll do is we'll bait fish. And one thing about Dorado, they're a big schooling fish. So once you find them and you hook them, if you're in a ponga, you got your buddy fishing with you, or two other guys in there, what you want to do is always keep a fish in the water, and it'll keep the school, keep it close to you. Now, they're going to leave eventually, but they'll last longer if you keep a fish in the water. Now, what you may want to do, and I always recommend them when you're fishing in Baja, is bring a bait catchers with you, Lucky Joe's, whatever you want. These are made by Iser, and there's all kinds of different models, different companies that make them. These are very important when you're down here. You know, sometimes you get down here and they might be able to get to the little sardinas, or sometimes you can't even get the sardinas. The wind might be blowing a little bit, so you have to go offshore a little bit and find the schools of mackerel or schools of bonita. These are very important to make it successful out here. Now, once you find your bait, it's very simple for Dorado fishing. You can forget the sinkers. You're not going to need them. All you're going to need is a good live bait hook, and I recommend the mustads. And match your hook to the size of your bait. Don't worry about the size of the fish. If you have a very small bait like a sardina, you want to go with maybe a size 1 or a 1/0, and maybe even a size 2. Be prepared for that. If you get into the larger mackerels, again, 3/0s and 6/0s. And a good medium hook is something like this, like a 4/0. But you always want to have a selection of hooks. Now, it's cheap insurance to have a wide selection, different types of hooks. But just a regular live bait hook. This is a 94-150 by Mustad, and it's a great hook for down here. If you want a forged hook, you can use one too, but the regular hooks are fine. Now, one thing, even though the Mustad hooks come very sharp, I always recommend that you sharpen your hook. And these deluxe hook sharpeners, these work out really good. These are by Point Check, or Checkpoint hook sharpeners. These are really good. And I also use this one. You can see how rusted it is for the big